Today's topic is spiritual awakening and spiritual psychosis. So let's begin today's topic with spiritual awakening and what it really is. So the idea of spiritual awakening in modern times was popularized by our good friend Carl Gustav Jung, who described the process as coming back to the original self. But of course, the experience of rising to higher states of consciousness has always been part of our individual and our collective human experience. In simple terms, spiritual awakening is when we all of a sudden, or gradually even, see ourselves, our lives, and others, and our place in the world through a deeply spiritual lens. When we start to experience that there is a higher power, or that things are connected to each other and we are, as human beings, are connected too, or that perhaps there is a divine order of things and that we have a part to play in it all, that life has a deeper meaning, that maybe we are really here to learn and evolve, that perhaps there is life after death in one way, shape, or form. When we perhaps speak through the thinning veil of our perceived reality, only to experience something life changing or even mind altering. Now, spiritual awakening can be triggered by anything really, from seemingly nothing, from something mundane to something completely life changing or even traumatic and frightening. Think of life events like chronic illness, an accident, near death experiences, or even things like loss of a loved one, or loss of a job, or a new location perhaps, divorce, a pandemic, a quarter or midlife crisis, and in some cases, a mental health crisis. But more on that later. But spiritual awakening can also be triggered by someone very close to us, let's say a soulmate on our journey, or even a twin flame connection. Yes, I've said twin flame connection, but proceed with caution on that topic, please. So, basically, this spiritual awakening causes us to look at our lives from a more spiritual perspective for one reason or another. And not always, but often, this awakening is life changing. And for some, things will never be the same as they were before a catalyzing event. As part of their spiritual awakening process, many can and will experience themes in their lives like a sense of disconnection from things, people, and places they used to enjoy and they felt connected to, or shifting relationships, loss of friendships, and a disconnection from social groups. And also more on that later. But for now, I would like to add that this disconnection is temporary. And as the individual grows in their new awareness and shifting interest, they will find new groups of belonging and new friendships will form with others who are on a similar path. A complete re-evaluation of their life and belief system. Spirituality or even religion becomes an important part of their life, perhaps. Life changes, including dietary choices, focus on their health becomes important. Exploring spiritual topics, reading about these topics, or even taking courses becomes an important aspect of their growth. Maybe even a change in career or a change of job can happen. They might decide that leaving the old living situation or living location is a calling and perhaps want to be closer to nature and live a life in harmony with it. They might experience more vivid dreams and start to notice synchronistic events in their lives. They might meet people, seemingly by accident now, that become their teachers or coaches as they grow in their spiritual awareness. They might feel the need to be of service to others in one way or another. They might decide to pursue their dreams, travel more, and see the world, to write or to teach about topics that have deeper meaning, may they be spiritual or otherwise in nature, and so on and so on. You get what I'm saying, right? It would be impossible to highlight all possibilities because spiritual awakening looks slightly different for everyone. That's pretty self explanatory, right? No two are the same, although they have strong similarities. Now, spiritual awakening can lead to complete transformation of one's life. For some, it's dramatic and drastic, and almost like you could say it happened from one day to the next, so to speak. But for many, it is a slower process, and it often happens in stages. After all, it is a journey. And this process may involve initial feelings of disconnection and loneliness, but that shall pass. And it may involve this feeling that the old life lost meaning. It feels empty and it is falling apart, but this shall too pass because it is essentially a time of recalibration and rearrangement or reordering what is important and what is not. What is that one leaves behind and what is that one takes with them to continue their journey. It also often involves deep reflection, the stripping away of the old self and the birthing of a new, so to speak, where they are confronted perhaps by their old ways of thinking and being and doing. And it urges them to accept, embrace, and to release these in order to become something more. And it ultimately leads to a complete and profound acceptance of oneself, one's past, and all that was and all that happened. And in this spiritual surrender, one finds peace and loving wisdom. Now, this transformation may seem difficult, and it has difficult aspects, yes. And some stages of this so called spiritual awakening are indeed challenging. However, soon enough, it should bring a greater sense of inner peace, a newfound purpose, even. Joy should return to one's life. New friendships should be able to form now. A new partner can enter also if this is one's desire, and so on. Feelings of connectedness, deep felt gratitude, a grounded and generally positive outlook on life should also be a result of this deep and profound spiritual awakening in good time. Spiritual awakenings should never be to one's detriment. It should not destroy one's life. It will force one, however, to reflect and reorganize it. But even when things or people seem to be falling away, it is always with good reason. Feelings of disconnectedness and loneliness should only be temporary. One should be able to see some deeper meaning behind things and events. Spiritual psychosis, on the other hand, is scary. It is like a wolf in sheep's clothing. Spiritual psychosis often involves delusional spiritual beliefs that have no basis in reality and are accompanied by psychotic symptoms such as personality changes, irritability, a false sense of spiritual superiority, hatred towards others who are on different paths or have different belief systems. Now, spiritual psychosis is not an official diagnostic term. However, it is used to describe certain types of delusions and beliefs that can accompany a psychotic episode. The definition of psychosis is a collection of symptoms that affect the mind where there has been some loss of contact with reality. Spiritual psychosis has symptoms like delusional beliefs that have no basis at all in reality or are extreme, very extreme in nature. Delusions, confusion, paranoia, personality changes, odd habits, even compulsive habits, social withdrawal or disconnection, antisocial behavior, suspiciousness of others, anger and irritability when someone points out something contradictory to one's beliefs. And in serious events and in serious cases, there might even be hallucinations. So, spiritual psychosis can be accompanied by the above mentioned symptoms, and its absolute focus is on spiritual beliefs and experiences. Now, if you are familiar with cults and New Age crazes and some of the New Age masters and gurus and whatnot, this might sound familiar to you. For example, an individual experiencing spiritual psychosis may believe that they are a reincarnation of a god or a goddess, or that they are a special one, a chosen one, being selected to communicate exclusively to a supernatural or multi-dimensional being, and so on. Now, allow me to add something here, to say something here. There are people who have or who had deeply profound spiritual experiences, even religious experiences. They might have had apparitions, they've seen the Lord or they've seen the Virgin Mother. Some might have seen or or be able to see visions. Some might hear messages. Some might predict future events with great accuracy. Some are so tuned in to their spirit guides, so to speak, that they can prevent unfortunate outcomes. Or others might be so tuned into others that they are able to comfort someone who is extremely good at masking whatever is going on in their life, and the whole world might be unaware of what struggles they have. You get what I'm saying, right? But that said, in my opinion, these are rare events, and these are individuals who have no intention of financial gain or power over others from their experiences. And yet, it is not so black and white. This also has some gray areas. And as Professor Sam Wapnick said, you can be normal, but not mentally well. And you can be mentally healthy, but completely abnormal, not typical. So, there you have it. The dark side of spirituality and spiritual emergency is spiritual psychosis. It is scary because it can be experienced in many ways. And it unfortunately is a common side effect of cults and New Age spirituality and even organized religion when taken to extremes. And often do those who are most vulnerable fall victim to these groups and organizations. And sometimes this drives them to literal madness, complete social isolation. Sometimes they take abuse as part of this false sense of belonging to a group, or abuse others due to their perceived spiritual superiority. And at times, this drives them to take their own lives or the lives of others. In any case, spiritual awakening is a complex and profound experience. It doesn't have upper or lower limits. It can happen out of the blue or gradually. It can be borne by seemingly nothing or some dramatic event. But it essentially will drive an individual to a heightened sense of spiritual awareness and belonging in a way that it brings greater understanding and inner peace, and that allows for an expanded consciousness, so to speak, and it should bring compassion towards oneself and towards others, that allows one to live their lives after big transformations in a way that it is better than it was before. And it is free flowing, sometimes hard, but it is a very empowering process with all its ups and downs, because hardly anything ever is linear, but rather goes around in circles and unfolds in spirals. So I hope you found this recording interesting or educational or even empowering. And if so, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. And I'll leave you with all of this for now. But I hope to see you next time.